Oh, thank you.
Shishi Guru Garanga and Dharvika Giridhari. Radhavino Bihari Radhagovinda Juki
Jai.
Dagi the Vishnu Vishnupad. Paramahansa Bharata Sata Srimad Bhai Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Dali the Vishnupad Paramahansa Bharata Sata Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Gurudev Ki Jai Gaudiya Guru Varga Ki Shri Rupa Shri Sanatan Bhata Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhata Das Raghunath Shri Goswami Prabhu Ki Prem Sikho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Bhagavata Shri Advaita Shri Vasudeva Kaura Bhaktivedanta Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Samagata Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Gaur Prem Hari Hari
So today is also sannyas thing. Isn't it the remembrance of Mahaprabhu's sannyas lila?
Is it?
I think so. You can look on the refrigerator, what the schedule is right there, the calendar. But Narottam Das Thakur's appearance day, and also remembrance of sannyas lila. And I think the appearance or the disappearance day of Srila Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj, who I have a particular special appreciation of since I've read Srila Bharati Maharaj's book.
You've never met him?
No. But we have photos of him with Srila Prabhupada, and we know that when Prabhupada was living in Vrindavan, because he was the one that founded Imli Tala.
Oh.
He acquired that property.
Okay.
His Pushpa Samadhi? Yeah, I think his Pushpa Samadhi is there. Right? In Imli Tala? That small Samadhi that's on the left when you come in the front. And then there's like a Samadhi there. That's Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj's. Yeah.
He's also got one in Radhadamara as well.
Yeah, probably. So, we never really knew much about him at all. We know that he went to the West. He was one of them that went to England for preaching. Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj. But the amazing Katha that Srila Bhakti began Bharati Maharaj, because of course he had a lot of association with him, that he told about him just completely melted my heart. Yeah, and he was so expert. Like, yeah, I mean, I'd have to read some of it to you, Srila Bharati Maharaj talked about how he came from one of these very, very high level, like Goswami families, which are highly revered in Bengal by anybody, right? So he had that kind of a birth. And he was such a capable, very highly educated person, spoke very good English. That's why he went to preach in England. And his techniques and tactics of preaching were very amazing. And he would also collect donations. And there's so many stories about him doing that. And one of them is with Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj together, the two of them. They had very close relationship also. And there's a couple of highlights from his preaching activities.
He didn't have the mat in Nandagal, right? Across from Sanatana Goswami.
Yeah, that also.
That's his mat.
Yeah, he also founded that.
I always go there. Okay.
And his mutt, I believe it's the mutt at Nandanacharya's residence where Gaur Nitai first met. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that that's his mutt because his godbrothers, they were very desirous that he should make a place in Navadvip So based upon his godbrother's desire, he took that place. Yeah. And he was actually in England preaching on his own when he received the news that Srila Prabhupada had passed. But he remained there for some extended period of time, weeks, months, whatever, and continued preaching. You just imagine, all alone, There's one story.
30s, right?
Huh?
In the late 30s.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. 1936.
But that mutt that you visited there too, right? In London, it's still there today?
Well, I don't know. No, he didn't found a mutt there, as far as I know. But some of the people who had been preached to over the years, I don't really know who founded that Gaudiya mutt. There's a 3-story house, big house in London, that Srila Bhakti Balabhatirtha Maharaj went to in 1999. He came to England, and I went, because Gurudev had left to go back to India, and then I visited him for 3 days. It was like in one of the suburbs of London also, like north, not far from the manor perhaps, much more heath. And and we went there to that mutt, but they have some affiliation also with Sri Ananta Vasudev, and he had a sannyasi named Puri Maharaj, I think. His sannyasi name was Puri Maharaj. They had a picture of him there. So they're connected with that line.
Of Ananta Vasudeva? You have a
Yeah.
picture?
Yeah. Well, of him, like, as a sannyasi. That's what I remember. Anyway, Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj, there's one story I remember, where some money had been sent to him from India. I forget who it was. They sent a check to him. So he brought the check to a bank, right? And the check was made out to his devotee name, to his devotional name, right? So he's trying to cash the check with, and then he asked to speak with the manager, the bank manager, and so forth. So the bank manager was saying, well, I need to have some identification, something that proves that you are this person, right? I forget what his name was. This is before he took sannyas, Can't remember his name. Anyway, so it came ultimately to that, right? And you know what happened? Goswami Maharaj looked at a newspaper that was on the desk of that manager. And he noticed that that was a newspaper that actually had an article on the front page about his coming to England to preach. And it had a photo of him there as well. So then, Saranga Goswami Maharaj told him, that newspaper there, please look at that article. And it said right there, his name, his previous name, right? It said his name, and then it had his photo there. And so then he said to the bank manager, am I not that same person? He said, yes, you are, therefore. And based upon that, he cashed the check. This is just one out of a couple dozen preaching, amazing preaching, And he had no false ego, although a lot of people that take birth with that kind of status, You know what he used to call himself? He said, I'm just a transcendental mlecha. He had that kind of humility, And anyway, there's so many stories. And of course, today, Narottam Das Thakur. Did Tirthapada Prabhu read this morning about Narottam Das Thakur? He also read this morning. Did he complete that Srila Bhakti Vallabha Tirtha Maharaj's narration of his biography?
I don't know if he actually finished it all.
Did they have the description of the kirtan at
Kachori Festival.
Keturi Gram? He read that this
I was
morning.
reading Bhakti Vigyan Bharati's mind, but that was Bhakti Bhava Tirtha.
Oh, he wasn't continuing because the day before he started to read Srila Bhakti Vallabha Tirtha Maharaj's in his book.
Okay.
You know the book. It's called Associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And there's a section about Narottam Das Thakur. So, we offer our unlimited obeisances at the lotus feet of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, who is such an important personality in our line. He is the embodiment of Gaur Prem that Mahaprabhu was calling out, Narottam, Narottam, when they came near his village. And everyone was wondering, who is that fortunate person who Mahaprabhu is calling his name? And then they inquired from him, and he told, very soon a great personality will take birth here, right in this area here. And then there was an incident where Nityānanda Prabhu, he was collecting Mahaprabhu's prem. This is how it's described. Nityānanda is telling to Mahaprabhu, there in Jagannath Puri, I collected the remnants of your prem. And then I came here to this area and I deposited that in this river. And so such and such Devi of the river is holding that prem. And that Devi came, and I told her, hold this prem until this person comes named Narottam. And you will know. Oh, she asked, how will I know who it is? Because as soon as his feet touch your waters, it will overflow. And that's exactly what happened when Narottam Das Thakur came there, submerged himself, and he received Gaur Prem. He was like the embodiment of Gaur Prem. So that's the personality who has written a couple of the most important books on bhajan, made of all of his songs, because Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj was asked one time, how can we attain this prem that Mahaprabhu has come to bring? How can we attain it? And Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he said, all you have to do is go to the marketplace and purchase 2 books, Prem Bhakti Chandrika and Prarthana by Narottam Das Thakur. And you follow that, what is told there, and you will receive Gaur Prem. So many pastimes about Srila Narottam Das Thakur, how he was also born in a very wealthy family. He was like a prince. But early in his life, he already showed symptoms that he had no interest. And they also tried to keep him like Raghunath Das Goswami with guards. But one day he escaped also. Yes. So one of the things is that in our disciplic line, our Srila Prabhupada, when he first came to the West, he began to teach and to sing and to record certain songs by Narottam Das Thakur. We have those recordings. Hari Haraye Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. That haunting melody, one of the most classic kirtans of Srila Prabhupada, and how he was so absorbed and his voice was cracking. Tandera Charana Sevi, his voice was choking, you know. So we've been introduced to Srila Narottam Das Thakur through our Srila Prabhupada, and it has been enhanced, our understanding, by Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj. And then Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj has nurtured that and gave us more deep appreciation of this personality. When Gurudev first came, he would ask or tell, Sing Gauranga Bolite Habe. And then Gurudev would also like to hear that Radha Krishna Prana Mor Jugala Kishore. And of course, Hari Harai Nama Krishna, you know. So,
Shri Guru Charana Padma every day.
Oh, right, yeah. Shri Guru Charana Padma. That song, Srila Prabhupada personally introduced that song. And then it became a standard in every single temple, you know. Yeah. So much. Tonight we're going to continue with our reading of the Śrī Caitanya-bhagavata. And tonight we're going to actually hear the exact description of how Jagai and Madhai were given Gaur Prem. So that's what we're going to focus on tonight. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahabhadanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gaura Tishe Namah Nityānandam Namastubhyam Premananda Pradayane Kalo Kalamashanashaya Janava Pataye Namaha Bande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityānando Sahodito Gaudau Dai Pushpavanto Chitro Shamdo Tamonudo Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavasya Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityānanda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat pranams at the lotus feet of my most worshipable, beloved Diksha and Siksha Gurudevs. Nityalila Pravishtom Vishnupad Paramahansa Ashtatarasata Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. Nityalila Pravishtom Vishnupad Paramahansa Ashtatarasata Srila Bhakti Rakshak Śrī Goswami Maharaj. And Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Ashtatarasata Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. I offer my Dandavat pranams at the lotus feet of all my Sri Rupa Guru Varga, especially Sri Srila Narottam Das Thakur Mahashai on his blessed appearance day. And I'm offering my Dandavat pranams to all of the Vaishnavas and to all of the Vaishnavis. So we've been reading, since Nityānanda Trayodasi, we've been reading a little bit more of the pastimes of Lord Nityānanda. And we began to read in the Madhya Kanda of Caitanya-bhagavata, the very chapter that is describing how Lord Nityānanda was the catalyst to save these two drunkards. We heard yesterday how bad they were. A very vivid description. How bad. Everyone was terrorized of them. So now, they took up, after, when they had chased after Nityānanda and Haridas Thakur, who were going towards Mahaprabhu's home, so they couldn't keep on running. So they took up residence right on the bank of the Ganga, where Mahaprabhu also would bathe. But from there, they could hear Mahaprabhu's kirtan. And they became very enlivened. They liked it a lot. But they thought that they're singing songs to Mangal Chandi and demigoddess and like this. So when Mahaprabhu, they stayed near the Lord's house and they listened to the Lord's kirtan as they remained awake throughout the night. Being intoxicated with wine, they joyfully danced as they listened to the sound of the kartals and the mridangas in the kirtan. As they could hear everything from that distance, they would listen, dance, and then drink more wine. Whenever there was kirtan, the two would stay there. When they heard the kirtan, they would get up and dance. They were so overwhelmed by drinking wine that they did not remember where they had been or where they were. And when they saw the Lord, they said, "Oh, Nimai Pandit, you should sing the entire song of Mangal Chandi. You have expert singers who we wish to see. We will bring and give you whatever you need." So Prabhupada is explaining in his comments, after satisfying their own whims at various places throughout Nadia, the two rogues, Jagai and Madhai, came and they set up camp near the Ghat, outside Mahaprabhu's house. And along with the sound of the Lord's kirtan, their habit of drinking flourished. They considered the devotees' glorification of Krishna with instruments to be glorification of Mangal Chandi. So when they met Mahaprabhu, they asked him what ingredients were needed to complete the rituals, which they considered to be like their own Tamagun rituals. The two rogues said, "We will collect and give you whatever ingredients are required to complete the glorification of Mangal Chandi." So, seeing those miscreants, the Lord kept a distance. Others took another path and they fled away. Now, Ek Din. You know what Ek Din means?
1 day.
1 day. Nityānanda Nagara Brahmi. Nityananda Prabhu, after wandering throughout the city one day, Nityananda went that night before the two. Kere kere boli dake Jagai Madhai. Jagai and Madhai shouted, "Who are you? Who are you?" Nityananda bolen, Prabhur Bari Jai. Nityananda replied, "I am going to the Lord's house." Prabhur Bari Jai. Madhyer Vikshepe Bole Kiba Nam Torah. Then, intoxicated by wine, they asked, "What is your name?" Nityananda Bole Avadut Nam Mora. Nityananda replied, "My name is Avadut." Balya Bhave Mahatama Nityananda Rai Madhya Per Sange Katha Kohen Lilai. Intoxicated in the mood of a child, Lord Nityananda spoke to the drunkards as his pastime. He had already decided, "I will deliver these two." And that is why he came there that night. On hearing the name of Avadut, Madhai became angry. He picked up a clay pot and he hit the Lord's head. Here, Srila Prabhupada says the word mutaki means broken clay pot. The broken clay pot cut the Lord's head and blood flowed from the wound. Yet, Lord Nityananda simply remembered Govinda. And on seeing the blood, Jagai felt compassionate and he grabbed the hand of Madhai when he prepared to strike the Lord again. "Why did you do that? You are very cruel. What will you gain by beating an outsider?" This is what Jagai said. The word Deshantari, which is in the verse, it means a person from another province. So what will you gain by beating an outsider, a person from another province? Eda avadute na mariha ar, sannyasi Maria kon bal va tomar. Leave Avadut alone. Do not beat him again. What will you gain by beating a sannyasi? Then there's a whole bunch of verses that are describing what happened next. Some people quickly went and they informed the Lord, who immediately came there with his associates. Previously, before reading this, I didn't quite know what was the time, the place. I thought it was practically like on the other side of the Ganga, but it was really, literally right near to Mahaprabhu's house. So some people quickly went and they informed the Lord, who immediately came there with his associates. The entire body of Nityananda was covered with blood. Yet Nityananda smiled as he stood there between the two. When the Lord saw the blood, he lost external consciousness out of anger and repeatedly called out, "Chakra, Chakra, Chakra!" The Sudarshan Chakra immediately appeared there, and it was seen by Jagai and Madhai. All the Lord's devotees became bewildered. But Nityananda immediately appealed to the Lord as follows. He said, "When Madhai hit me, Jagai saved me. By providence, blood came out, yet I felt no pain. O Lord, give me these two in charity. Please be pacified, for I feel no pain." Now Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada is telling, on hearing the news that Madhai had injured Sri Nityananda, Sri Gaurasundar came to that spot and invoked the Sudarshan Chakra. The two drunkards became extremely frightened on seeing the Sudarshan Chakra. Sri Nityananda then said to Mahaprabhu, I did not feel much trouble due to bloodshed. When Madhai attacked me, Jagai protected me. Nevertheless, by chance, blood came out. They are not at fault. There is no use to retaliate on the bodies of these two rogues. You may be peaceful and give me their two bodies in charity. On hearing the words, Jagai protected me, then the Lord became happy. He embraced Jagai. He said to Jagai, may Krishna bestow mercy on you. By protecting Nityananda, you have purchased me. Ask me for any benediction you desire. May you attain pure devotional service from this day on. On hearing the benediction awarded to Jagai, all the Vaishnavas chanted, Jai, Jai, Hari Bol, Hari Hari. And as soon as the Lord said, may you attain pure devotional service, Jagai immediately lost consciousness due to ecstatic love. The Lord said, O Jagai, get up and see me. I have indeed awarded you pure devotional service. He's saying Prem Bhakti, that's in the verse. Jagai saw Vishwambar having 4 arms and holding conch, disc, club, and lotus. And seeing this, Jagai fell unconscious to the ground. Lord Śrī Caitanya then placed his lotus foot on Jagai's chest. Receiving the treasure of the Lord's lotus feet, which are the life and soul of Lakshmi, Jagai held them tightly as if they were invaluable jewels. The fortunate Jagai shed tears as he held the Lord's feet. Such are the wonderful pastimes of Lord Gauranga. Jagai and Madhai were like one soul with 2 bodies. Yet here, one was pious and one was sinful. So Prabhupada is explaining that in the mutual exchange between Jagai and Madhai, sometimes on the pretext of pious activity, one would caution the other from committing sinful activities. And at other times, when the former would engage in sinful activities, then the latter would caution him. Therefore, they were both rascals. On seeing Jagai's reward, the heart of Madhai was transformed. When the Lord bestowed mercy on Jagai, the heart of Madhai was immediately rectified. He quickly released Nityananda's cloth. He fell flat and he held the Lord's lotus feet. O Lord, we both committed sinful activities together. Why do you divide us while bestowing your mercy? Bestow your mercy on me so that I can chant your name. There is no one to deliver me other than you. Prabhu Bole, the Lord replied, I do not foresee your deliverance, for you have drawn blood from the body of Nityananda. Then Madhai said, you cannot say this. Why are you forsaking your duty? Why did you award your lotus feet to the demons that pierced your body with arrows? Then the Lord replied, your offense is greater than theirs, because you have drawn blood from the body of Nityananda. The body of Nityananda is superior to mine. I emphatically tell you this truth. So Mahaprabhu said, Prabhupada is telling, that since Madhai hit the body of Nityananda, he would not be delivered. And in response to this, Madhai referred to the topics from the pastimes of Krishna and Ram as follows. In the past, many demons have attained liberation even though they were envious of Vishnu. But in this case, why a demon like me will not be delivered? So that's what Madhai was arguing. Then in this regard, they knew. They had heard Ramayana, Mahabharata. So, in this regard, Mahaprabhu said, it is a greater offense to hit the body of Nityānanda, who is the servant of Vishnu, than to become envious of Vishnu. To harm Sri Nityānanda is more offensive than attacking the body of the Lord. So then Madhai, he said, O Lord, if you are telling me the truth, then tell me, how will I be delivered? You destroy all disease, for you are the crest jewel of all physicians. If you treat me, then I will be cured. O Lord of the universe, please do not deceive me. Now that you are known, how will you hide? Then the Lord said, you have committed a grave offense. Go and grab hold of Nityananda's lotus feet. Being ordered by the Lord, Madhai then caught hold of the invaluable treasure of Nitai's lotus feet. By taking refuge of those feet, those lotus feet, one is never vanquished. Revati knows well the glories of those lotus feet. Then Vishwambar said, listen, Nityānanda, now that he has fallen at your lotus feet, it is proper for you to show him mercy. Since he has made you bleed, only you can forgive him. And now he has fallen at your feet. Then Nityananda replied, O Lord, what can I say? You have the potency to bestow mercy even through a tree. So Prabhupada is explaining, Srimad Nityananda Prabhu said to Mahaprabhu, when the demigods face difficulties, you protect them. When living entities like human beings are put in danger, you protect them. You also possess the power to protect plants, whose consciousness is not as developed as that of living entities like human beings. So then, Nityananda said, I declare emphatically that if I have ever accumulated piety in any lifetime, I give it all to Madhai. He is relieved of any offense committed against me. Do not bewilder him. Bestow mercy on your Madhai. Prabhupada says, Nityananda Prabhu said, Madhai has not committed any offense against me. By creating mischief, Madhai has today obtained from you the piety that I have accumulated by serving you in various ways, birth after birth. Therefore, you have forgotten whatever offense Madhai has committed against me, and bestowed your mercy on him without duplicity. So give up the illusion of deceitful discrimination and bestow your causeless mercy on Madhai. Then Vishwambar said, if you have actually forgiven Madhai, then embrace him and make his life successful. On the order of the Lord, Nityananda tightly embraced Madhai, who as a result was freed from all material bondage. Nityananda entered the body of Madhai, and Madhai became filled with all energies. Yes. It says, on the strength of Nityananda's energies, Madhai became filled with all good qualities. He invested in him who had attacked him. By the will of the Lord, Sri Nityananda Prabhu lovingly embraced Madhai, who had attacked him, and he invested him with his own energies. And on the strength of Nityananda's energies, Madhai became filled with all good qualities. And after becoming freed from the propensity for material enjoyment and empowered to engage in the Lord's service, they were now qualified to offer prayers with selected verses. In this way, the two were delivered, and they began to offer prayers at the lotus feet of the two lords. The Lord then said, Prabhu bole tora ar na koris pap, jagai madhe bole ar nare bap. The Lord said to them, do not commit further sins. And Jagai and Madhai replied, never again, O Lord. Prabhupada says, being overcome with greed for material enjoyment, godless people commit various sinful activities. The most merciful Gaur Hari forbade the two rogues from committing sinful activities in the future. And Jagai and Madhai fully accepted the Lord's order and promised not to commit sinful activities again. Any thoughts on this?
Wow.
Any thoughts?
That's the spiritual master's
Can you take the mic?
As a kind of Guru Tattva, Lord Nityānanda shows how Sri Guru comes into the life of his disciple, intervenes and frees him from all his past sinful activities with the promise that those activities not be ever committed again.
Just like when Srila Prabhupada began to give initiation, he had already given them the lifestyle. He had already converted them, And he continued that throughout all those 12 years of his traveling everywhere and giving initiation by letter and so forth. But everyone understood that Prabhupada was having them promise. And he actually made them pronounce the words in front of him. He would say, what are the four regulative principles? Remember? Did you have to do that?
Yes.
Did you have to do it, Pran? Did you have to when you got initiated?
Yeah.
You did. You had to go individually up to Prabhupada.
Yeah, well, Prabhu wasn't there.
Oh, you didn't get directly. Okay.
Diksha, that's right.
What? Diksha you got.
Diksha, I got directly.
Okay. Yeah. How about you, Sajjan Raj?
Yeah, everyone.
Well, you tell yours. You were in Hawaii, right?
No. I received initiation in San Diego.
Yeah.
And Hawaii was 75.
Directly from Prabhupada or through letter or what?
And in San Diego, I lived in the temple for 6 months. So I wrote to Śrīla Prabhupada, and he wrote a letter back, accepted me.
Okay.
And then there was initiation, but he wasn't there.
Yeah.
Okay. In my case, I've told my story before how after that whole year waiting for Prabhupada, in Detroit and then in Chicago through the blizzard winter and everything. Finally in the springtime, our temple president, who was Bahulasva at that time, he told me and Bhakta Bill and Bhakta Bob, the three of us, Prabhupada has returned to Los Angeles or San Francisco, one of the two places. And now all the devotees who have been waiting, they can write their initiation request letter to Srila Prabhupada. So then I sat down and with a piece of paper, a few pieces of paper, and I began contemplating and meditating. We hadn't yet seen Prabhupada personally, but we had the vision of his lotus feet emblazoned in our heart, And you know, I actually contemplated that I have to plead my case to him. I actually thought that. I actually thought that maybe Prabhupada won't accept me as his disciple. Maybe he won't accept me. So then I was sitting down with this, and it ended up being like a few pages. 3 pages, something like that. And I was explaining to Srila Prabhupada how I have come to know that I'm an eternal spirit soul, and I've been wandering in the material world for millions of lifetimes, in all different species of life. And now that I've come to the shelter of your lotus feet and your devotees and your movement, now, if you don't accept me, what will I do? I was actually presented my case like that. I can just remember that. I wish I could get a copy, because, you know, I think that the servants of Prabhupada kept most of the letters that were sent to Prabhupada that he had replied. And I'd really like to get that someday, you know. So, anyway, and I also told there, describing to Prabhupada how I sometimes have a struggle with this mind. I understand, as you've taught us in Bhagavad Gita, that we are not this mind, but yet there is a struggle, like that. So anyway, our temple president mailed off our 3 letters. The other 2 of my godbrothers ended up getting the names Paramahansa and Parivrajacharya.
And this is from Chicago?
It's from Chicago. We were together in Chicago through the winter doing kirtan, just the 3 of us with Bahulasva, 4 of us, every day. So, of course, they became sannyasis in 1972, 2 years later, you know. They received sannyas from Prabhupada at the Radha Damodar temple when Prabhupada was in 1972 having those classes on the nectar of devotion. So, anyway, the 3 of us were told by Bahulasva, yeah, so now why don't you go in pairs and go and hitchhike up to the temple in Detroit. So I went with Parivrajacharya, and then we even stayed in some house on a lakefront somewhere along the way at the night. We just, it looked like there was nobody there. We stayed inside. And then the next day, we made it to Detroit. And when we made it to Detroit, there was a hustle and bustle, because it was literally maybe 2 days, I think, before Prabhupada was to arrive. And so when I arrived, Bhagavan was informed that, you know, these boys have arrived from our Chicago temple. And Bhagavan came down the stairs and handed us each our letter that we personally received from Prabhupada. We each had a separate letter, all 3 of us. I took that letter and I went to some corner and sat there and opened it up. And my heart was beating, you know. I just actually found that letter. I mean, I found it before, but somehow I was just looking through Prabhupada's letters, and I came to that very letter. And I read it again just a few days ago.
Was it addressed to your English name, and so that's
Yes.
why you would find it in the index?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
My dear Jeffrey, you know, I don't remember it by heart, because there were some differences when I read it compared to what I had remembered that Prabhupada said in the letter. But nevertheless, he said, by the recommendation of both Bhagavan and Bahulasva Prabhus, I gladly consent to accept you as my duly initiated disciple. Then he said, I can tell from your letter that you are a very sincere boy. So he actually read my letter, and then he said, yeah, he was mentioning about how you have been following the regulated principles and chanting and all of that. So you should go on in this way. He said, go on in this way, and you should help to make our Chicago Center a grand success. That is my desire for you. Then he said, you mentioned in your letter that you were experiencing some difficulty. And that was when I was talking about the mind. Because I had actually read some Gaudiya Mat, like the Manasiksha, where Raghunath Das Goswami is talking about his mind being like a low-class dog-eating woman. And I read those verses back then. They had some translation of that. And so I had mentioned like that to Srila Prabhupada in my letter. My mind is like such and such. And so he actually read that and he said, you say that you are experiencing some difficulty. And you know what he said after that? He said, but that is Krishna's mercy upon you, to make you turn to him more and more. And that became like a guiding light of my whole life. The difficulty is Krishna's mercy on you. You should see it in that way. And he wants you to turn to him more and more. Yeah, so yeah, we were talking about our initiation. Oh, right, I wanted to say, because I had asked you your stories, did you receive directly from Prabhupada? So I got that letter, and either the next day or the day after that, Prabhupada actually came. And we went to greet him at the airport and all that. And then the first time seeing him. And then he came that evening and gave his, he gave a class that evening. You know whose house he lived in? He lived in the grandmother of Prabhu, who lives up in Oregon. Yeah, he lived in that house. In Detroit, yeah. In a suburb of Detroit. And he would come from that house every day. So, when I met Prabhu again after many, many years, when I visited Eugene, we had met him at a program, and he also invited me to his house. And we talked and talked and talked, because he joined just a few months before Prabhupada came, whereas I joined almost a year before Prabhupada came. So anyway, Srila Prabhupada came, and we would greet him out on the lawn of the house. And when he would drive up, they had some Lincoln Continental or something, Cadillac, some big type of car, like a limousine type car, but not an actual limousine, Town car. And then we'd go out on the lawn. But not the first evening, but I think the second, because he was there 3 days. And the second evening, they told all the devotees who were getting initiated by Prabhupada that they should sit in the temple room, because they had different places with your plate and your banana and like that, they had that arranged. And so somehow or other, because I had gotten my letter already from Srila Prabhupada, and also I got my beads from him. And he said, Prabhupada actually said in the letter, I have sent your beads, duly chanted. And then he also said, and I have given you the spiritual name, Urukram Das Brahmachari. And he said, Urukram is a name for Krishna, and it means one whose activities are glorious. So he said that in the letter. So somehow or other, they arranged that the devotees who, like us, who had already gotten our letter, were not called, because we were considered already to have received initiation. So I didn't get to go up to Prabhupada, because I already had my beads, right? Because the beads were sent along in the letter. So I didn't get to go up to him personally directly. But it was just as good as that, Anyway, Prabhu Bole. Shuno Tora Duijan. Listen to me, you two persons. Satya Ami Tore Korilan Mochan. This is after telling Jagai and Madhai not to commit any further sinful activities, right? And Jagai and Madhai agreed, never again, O Lord. So then the Lord said, listen, both of you. I have indeed delivered you today. I take full responsibility for whatever sinful activities you have performed in your previous millions of lifetimes, provided you do not commit sin again. So, yeah. Let's read this purport. Important. Prabhupada says, persons who are inclined towards the service of the Lord, they retire from material enjoyment and they dedicate all their endeavors for the pleasure of Krishna. They then no longer hanker for accumulating piety or impiety in this material world. The devotees then fully surrender themselves and they enjoy spiritual happiness as they constantly engage in the service of the Lord. Since, after being freed from material bondage, self-realized living entities offer whatever activities they perform for the service of the Lord, therefore all their activities like bathing, eating, and sleeping are counted as service to Krishna, and they are therefore situated on the spiritual platform. Then the conditioned soul's sinful reactions accumulated over millions of lifetimes are at once removed. All sins and resultant sufferings are thus destroyed by the mercy of the Lord. Other than influencing the weak living entities to become averse to Hari, the covering and the throwing potencies of Maya cannot exhibit any influence on the devotee. The fully surrendered, self-realized devotees, that's what we're talking about here. Fully surrendered, self-realized devotees are soon nourished in the lap of liberation and then do not indulge in any form of pious or sinful activities. The declaration of Krishna in the Sarva Dharman Parityajya verse, where he says, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. This is the destroyer of the living entity's miseries. That verse. So now Mahaprabhu continues talking to Jagai and Madhai. I will eat through the mouths of you too, and I will incarnate in your bodies. On hearing the Lord's words, Jagai and Madhai fell unconscious in ecstasy. The illusion of the two Brahmans was thus destroyed, and they merged in an ocean of ecstasy. And knowing this, Lord Vishwambar instructed them as follows. Dui jane tuli laha amar badite, kirtan koribo dui janer sahite. Pick these two up and bring them to my house. Today we will perform kirtan with these two. Today I will award them that which is rare for even Lord Brahma. I will place them in the topmost position in this world. After forgiving the rogue's offenses, the causelessly merciful Gaur Sundar awarded them the qualification to participate in hearing and chanting the glories of Lord Hari. From the material point of view, the two were antisocial atheists. They were uplifted from extreme abomination, and they were awarded the qualification to engage in the topmost service of Lord Vishnu. The good fortune that Lord Brahma, the grandfather of all living entities, is worthy of, yet unable to achieve, today these two attained superior good fortune as they obtained the position of topmost Vaishnavas. The extent of Sri Gaur Sundar's mercy has no limit. Through his causeless mercy, he can permanently elevate the most fallen and unqualified persons to the highest platform. So those who took bath, Mahaprabhu is continuing to tell the devotees. Those who took bath in the Ganga, after being touched by these two, they will now say that these two are equal to the Ganga. The determination of Nityānanda is never baffled, Mahaprabhu says. Know for certain that this was the desire of Nityānanda. Thereafter, all the Vaishnavas caught hold of Jagai and Madhai and took them inside the Lord's house. The intimate associates entered along with the Lord. The door was then closed, and others were not allowed to enter. Mahaprabhu Vishwambar came in, and he sat down. Nityānanda and Gadadhar sat on either side of him. Advaita, the greatest recipient of the Lord's mercy, sat in front of the Lord, and all the Vaishnavas sat around the Lord. Pundarik, Vidyanidhi, Haridas Thakur, Garuda, Ramai, Srinivas, Gangadas, Vakreshwara Pandit, and Chandrasekharacharya, they all knew the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. Numerous exalted devotees happily sat with Jagai and Madhai around Lord Chaitanya. As Jagai and Madhai rolled on the ground, their hair stood on end, they shed tears, their entire body shivered. Who has the power to understand the desire of Lord Chaitanya, who transformed the two rogues into Mahabhagavatas? The Lord delivered many atheistic ascetics and sannyasis by such nectarine pastimes. Anyone who has faith in these pastimes attains Krishna, while those who have doubts, they fall down. Long purport to this one. The two, Jagai and Madhai, then began to offer prayers that were heard by Sri Gaur Sundar and his associates. By the order of Lord Chaitanya Chandra, Shuddha Saraswati, the goddess of transcendental knowledge, appeared on the tongues of those two. Seeing Lord Nityānanda and Lord Chaitanya together there, the two could understand their actual identity. In this way, the two great personalities began to recite prayers. Anyone who hears these prayers attains devotional service to Krishna. Krishna Bhakti Labhya Hoy. Anyone who hears the prayers of these two Mahashais, great personalities, they attain devotional service to Krishna. So what did they say? Jaya Jaya Mahaprabhu, Jaya Vishwambar, Jaya Jaya Nityānanda, Vishwambar Dhara. Because Dhara means he's the support of Vishwambar. So Nityānanda, he is the personality that supports and serves Vishwambar in 10 different ways, as his bed, as his padukas, everything. So that's why his name is Vishwambara Dhara. Jaya Jaya Nijanam Vinod Acharya. Jaya Nityananda Chaitanyara Sarvakarya. All glories to the Acharyas who take pleasure in chanting their own names. All glories to Nityānanda, who does everything for the pleasure of Lord Chaitanya. Very long purport here. Jaya Jaya Jagannath, Mishrer Nandan. What does that mean? All glories to the son of Jagannath Mishra. Jaya Jaya Nityānanda Chaitanya Sharan. All glories to Nityānanda, who is fully surrendered to Lord Chaitanya. Jaya Jaya Sachiputra Karunar Sindhu. All glories to Sachi's son, who is an ocean of mercy. Jai Jai Nityānanda Chaitanyara Bandhu. All glories to Nityānanda, who is Lord Chaitanya's friend. Jai Raj Pandit Duhita Praneshwar. Jai Nityānanda Kripamoy Kalevara. All glories to the beloved Lord of the Raj Pandit's daughter. All glories to Nityānanda, whose body is filled with compassion. Say Jai Prabhu Tumi Jata Koro Kaj. Jai Nityānanda Chandra Vaishnava Adi Raj. All glories to all the activities of the Lord. All glories to Nityānanda Chandra, the emperor of the Vaishnavas. All glories to the Lord, who holds the conch, disc, club, and lotus. All glories to the best of the Avadutas, who is non-different from the Lord. All glories to Gaur Chandra, the life of Advaita. All glories to the thousand-headed Nityānanda. All glories to the life and soul of Gadadhar and the Lord of Murari. All glories to the benefactor of Haridas and Vasudev. You have delivered numerous sinful persons in your various incarnations. This is glorified throughout the world as most wonderful. By delivering us too, however, your past glories have become minimized. Even the glories of delivering Ajamil have been minimized by delivering us. We are not flattering you. We are speaking the truth. Ajamil was actually fit for liberation. It is stated in the Vedas that a person who has killed millions of brahmanas immediately attains liberation if he chants your name. Such a name was vibrated by Ajamil. So his deliverance was not very wonderful. You incarnate to establish the truth of the Vedas. If you do not deliver the living entities, then the words of the Vedas become false. Yet, we have harmed the body of your associate, and still you have delivered both of us. O Lord, now just see how much difference there is between you and us too. On hearing the name Narayan from the mouth of Ajamil, 4 Mahajans came and appeared before him. We saw you along with your associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions after we drew blood from Nityānanda. Till now, you have kept your glories concealed, but, O Lord, the limit of your glories is now revealed. Now the Vedas have become most authoritative, and now Lord Ananta will proudly sing your glories. Now your hidden quality has become manifest. O Lord, the name of this quality is called Nirlakshya Udhar. That means causeless deliverance. Causeless deliverance. Delivering unqualified fallen souls by your causeless mercy is the shining example of this. If you say that despite their attack, demons like Kamsa were also delivered, then consider what qualities they had. Those kings constantly saw you. They fought with you according to Kshatriya principles and constantly thought of you in fear. Yet they could not avoid the sin of attacking you. And as a result, they and their dynasties were destroyed. They left their bodies while seeing you. Yet, which great soul cared to touch them? The pure devotees who once took bath in the Ganga, after touching our shadow, are now touching us. O Lord, this is certainly due to your extraordinary glories. Who can be deceived now? Everyone is convinced. The great devotee Gajendra offered you prayers, and you delivered him because he was fully surrendered. That example cannot be applied to the demons like Putana, Agha, and Baka. Although they attained the spiritual world where they left their bodies, who had the power to see that without Vedic knowledge? What you have done to us two sinners, however, has been directly seen by the people of the entire world. The sinners that you have previously delivered, they all had some qualification or another. But now you have causelessly delivered two persons who were Brahmin demons. It's called Brahmadaitya. This is only due to your mercy. Then Jagai and Madhai cried as they offered these prayers. Such are the matchless pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. On seeing this matchless pastimes, all the Vaishnavas stood up and they offered prayers with folded hands. They said, O Lord, without your mercy, not even one's father will understand the prayers offered by these two drunkards. Who can understand your inconceivable energies, or when, how, and on whom you bestow your mercy? Then the Lord said, Prabhu bale e dui madhyap nahe ar, aji hoite e dui sevak amar. Then the Lord said, these two are no longer drunkards. From today on, these two are my servants. All of you bestow your mercy on these two, so that birth after birth they do not forget me. Forgive whatever offenses they have committed against you, and show compassion on them. And hearing the Lord's words, Jagai and Madhai fell down at everyone's feet. All the devotees blessed Jagai and Madhai, who were then freed from all their offenses. Then the Lord said, get up, Jagai and Madhai, do not worry, for you are my servants. The prayers that you have offered are certainly true. No one can refute them. What you have experienced is not possible in these bodies. Know for certain that this was simply due to Nityānanda's mercy. I have personally taken charge of your sinful reactions. Personally. O brothers, see for yourselves. Then in order to demonstrate that there were no more sins remaining in the bodies of those two, the Lord's body turned blackish. The Lord said, how do I look? Advaita replied, you look just like Sri Gokula Chandra. On hearing Advaita's comment, Vishwambar smiled, and all the devotees chanted the name of Hari. The Lord said, see how these two sinners are black. Perform kirtan, so that their sins take shelter in those who blaspheme. Mahaprabhu, this is Prabhupada saying, Mahaprabhu said, the forms of Jagai's and Madhai's sinful reactions are black. All of you perform kirtan, then these black sinful reactions will take shelter in those who blaspheme the devotees, and Jagai and Madhai will be delivered from their sins. Hearing the Lord's words, everyone became jubilant. They then began to perform kirtan in ecstasy. Lord Vishwambar danced with Nityānanda, and all the Vaishnavas surrounded them and sang the glories of the Lord. Advaita also danced. He had induced the Lord to incarnate, and thus he delivered the entire world. As they performed kirtan, everyone clapped their hands, and they danced jubilantly. They felt no fear as they bumped into the Lord thousands of times in their ecstasy. Mother Sachi and her daughter-in-law floated in an ocean of ecstasy as they watched everything from within the house. Yes. Everyone was filled with ecstasy after seeing this pastime. Their ecstatic love for Krishna was uninterrupted. The two drunkards danced in the association of he whose body the goddess of fortune is afraid to touch. In this way, Lord Chaitanya delivered the two drunkards and sent the blasphemers of the Vaishnavas to the hell known as Kumbhipaka. What did we just hear? Lord Chaitanya delivered the two drunkards, and then what did he do?
Their sins and the blasphemers of devotees.
He sent the blasphemers of the Vaishnavas to the hell known as Kumbhipaka. That's what it directly says here. Vaishnav Nindake Kumbhipake Dilatai. He sent them to the hell of Kumbhipaka, the blasphemer of the Vaishnavas. What a dangerous activity is blaspheming Vaishnavas. Then it says, blasphemy does not enhance one's religious principles. It only results in sin. That is why fortunate souls do not engage in blasphemy. So, I'm going to read this not very long purport. Let's see. It's not very long. The devotees of the Lord, Prabhupada is saying, they do not blaspheme anyone in this world. One who blasphemes others is known as sinful or irreligious. To attribute on someone faults that are not present is called blasphemy. Being induced by irrelevant goals, those who are unable to tolerate the glorification of others, and with a desire to attack them, they unfairly attribute faults on them continually. They meet with inauspiciousness day after day. A person who out of envy attributes faults on an irreproachable Vaishnava must go to the hell known as Kumbhipaka and suffer severe miseries. Those sinful persons who cannot understand that Sarva Mahaguna Gan Vaishnava Sharire, they cannot understand that all good qualities are present in the body of a Vaishnava. So those persons who cannot understand this and who consider that non-Vaishnavas are equal to Vaishnavas can never achieve any benefit. To criticize the behavior of non-devotees is called Sad Upadesh, or good instruction. To criticize the behavior of non-devotees is called Sad Upadesh, or good instruction. Other than devotional service to Vishnu, all activities of the living entities are condemnable. Sinful people often engage in abominable activities on the pretext of devotional service to Vishnu. Instructions to give up these activities should not be called ninda or blasphemy. So what did he just say? He's saying that if somebody is instructing persons who engage in abominable activities on the pretext of devotional service to Vishnu, instructions to give up these activities should not be called ninda or blasphemy. So what is he saying?
So if you speak of a devotee who is engaged in actual sinful activities, that's not blasphemy. So Prabhupada said to call a thief is not not wrong. So it's all right to, you shouldn't fear criticizing those who engage in actual sinful activities, thinking that, oh, well, they're a devotee, so therefore I should not criticize, when actually you should, because otherwise there could be havoc in the devotional community, allowing activities that are untoward to flourish because no one wants to criticize, thinking, oh, well, it's a devotee doing it. Is that?
Yeah, something to that. But here also, before he makes that statement in this purport, he says to criticize the behavior of non-devotees is called sad upadesh, or good instruction. Then he says, other than devotional service to Vishnu, all activities of the living entities are condemnable. Sinful people often engage in abominable activities on the pretext of devotional service to Vishnu. Instruction to give up these activities should not be called ninda or blasphemy. So, if someone, look, just like we see various levels of devotees. Some of them are not really following, not really practicing. They've become sinful. They're engaging in many sinful activities, etc. Right? But yet, these sinful people often engage in abominable activities on the pretext of devotional service to Vishnu. So when we see that happening, of persons who are presenting themselves to be devotees and performing devotional service, yet they're performing, they're very sinful persons, and they engage in abominable activities on the pretext of devotional service to Vishnu, to instruct them to give up. Instructions to give up these activities should not be called ninda or blasphemy. So, similar to what you told, it has to be understood that you don't necessarily just remain silent, but you point this out. And that is not ninda, to point that out.
Right, I mean, otherwise, I'm just thinking of things that I shouldn't, they just come to mind. Like there were parties, there were Sankirtan parties, whether you're familiar with this, out of New Vrindavan, out of Berkeley, out of LA, where one man was told to take all these women out and do these truck stops and things like that. And they were actually instructed that, oh yes, you should satisfy these women and keep them in line like that. And it's like so abominable, but yet it was actually thought, oh, this is devotional service. So if you don't criticize that, then it just will continue flourishing. So, I mean, that's something.
Yeah, I mean, we can probably sit here and make a list of 108 abominable and more, 1,008, you know, what we've even witnessed or heard about. But the point that's being made here is that those persons should be instructed to give up these activities. And that is not ninda or blasphemy to instruct them to give up these activities. That's why earlier he says, to criticize the behavior of non-devotees is called sat upadesh, good instruction. So we should not shy away from that. Yeah.
So he's saying to criticize non-devotees.
The behavior. the behavior of non-devotees.
So, and what Rishabh is talking about is the behavior of devotees. That are not on the platform of following devotion like they should be. So, because we hear, often it was quoted by Srila Bhāman Maharaj, Beki be shuni be boli bona. We can see, and then, and then we've heard so many times Gurudev say, if you see this fault in someone and you concentrate on that and then you criticize for them for that fault, then you'll bring that fault into you. Now, I'm not talking about non-devotees. This is your quote is for non-devotees to point out their misbehavior. That's called Sad Upadesh.
Sad Upadesh, good instruction.
What about, you said we could point out 1008. We've seen so much the devotees, for one reason or another, they aren't following and they are performing such following blacks. So can you...
Look, it's very simple. It's very simple. Here, Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada is saying, sinful people. He's talking about sinful people, right? He's just putting them in a general category. Sinful people often engage in abominable activities on the pretext of devotional service to Vishnu. So what he's basically saying is that if somebody's engaging in abominable activities and yet saying, I'm a devotee of Krishna or this or that, then that person is a sinful person. You can't say that he's not sinful. You can't just become blind to the sins that are being committed.
He's a non-devotee?
Here it says...
That was my question.
What is your question?
My question is, he's sinful, but is he also a non-devotee? Because the word Sad Upadesh was referred to as...
There's two different sentences that I've read.
Yes, two different. That's all.
The first one says, to criticize the behavior of non-devotees is called Sad Upadesh, or good instruction. Then he says, other than devotional service to Vishnu, all activities of the living entities are condemnable. Then he says, sinful people often engage in abominable activities on the pretext of devotional service to Vishnu. Who would that be? That would be persons who are saying that they're devotees, or trying to project that they're devotees, and that because I'm a devotee, my sinful activities should be overlooked. But no, he's saying here that sinful people who have that tendency to commit sins, we could name a lot of different types of sins that a lot of devotees are committing. There's quite a few very, very abominable, bad, sinful activities, which they've also agreed not to commit as an initiated disciple, right? But they're doing that, okay? So what he's saying here is that sinful people means people that are posing as devotees. They often engage in abominable activities on the pretext of devotional service to Vishnu. So instructions to give up these activities should not be called ninda or blasphemy. In other words, you're trying to help that jiva, that you're doing these sinful activities. This is not the standard of bhakti to Krishna. If you continue to do this, you'll become more and more degraded. So that's why Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada is saying that to criticize the behavior of non-devotees, I would say he's also putting in the category of persons who are posing as devotees. Because if you're posing as a devotee, but you're continually engaging in non-devotional, how can you be called a Vaishnava? How can you be called a devotee? So, but he's saying here that it is good instruction. It's called Sad Upadesh. If you're pointing this out, you're criticizing the behavior of non-devotees. So,
also, he's saying the
Yeah.
behavior, criticizing the behavior,
yeah.
not necessarily criticizing.
Yes, he's talking about behavior in both of these sentences. Engaging in abominable activities.
Like in the Bible it says, hate the sin, not the sinner. I mean, I personally witnessed, and I'm sure you did, and everyone here has witnessed how Srila Prabhupada and how Srila Gurudev has approached these devotees that aren't up to the standard, but in a very loving and compassionate way, told them that this is improper and enthused them to come up to a higher level.
Here, Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta is not telling loving or compassionate or anything. He's just saying that to give them good instruction. Okay? So this could be applied in so many different circumstances. I'm not going to try to qualify whether you give it to them lovingly or whatever, you know. But you're using the example of pure Mahabhagavad Vaishnavas, okay? So they are automatically loving and affectionate, but they also reject certain persons who are blasphemous. They reject them. We have various behaviors that we've seen of our Gurudev dealing with persons who at one time were living the life of a Vaishnava and then they became a Mayavadi. And Gurudev completely rejected, completely, to their face. I have no relationship with you. So the point that's being made here, I mean, you know, the sentence itself, I'm going to read the verse itself. It says, blasphemy does not enhance one's religious principles. It only results in sin. That is why fortunate souls do not engage in blasphemy. But Bhaktisiddhanta is saying at the end of this short purport that this is not considered blasphemy. Instructions to such persons to give up these activities of sinful life should not be called ninda or blasphemy. So after transforming the two rogues into Mahabhagavatas, Sri Gaur Hari danced along with his associates. And overwhelmed from dancing, Lord Vishwambar sat down and all the Vaishnavas sat around him. Their bodies were covered with 2 inches of dust, yet they were all filled with pure knowledge. Lord Gaur-Sundar regained his former state, smiled and spoke to everyone there. He said, "Do not consider these 2 as sinners, for I have personally burned their sinful reactions to ashes. In the bodies of all living entities, it is I who makes them act, speak, move, and eat. When I leave a body, it dies. The living entity cries out if he feels a little distress. But if I am not present in that body, it will not even move when burned. But the living entity's distress is due to false ego, ahankar. He suffers miseries because he claims, I am the doer, I am the speaker. Therefore, the activities done by these 2 were actually done by me, and I have released them from the reactions. Knowing this fact, all of you Vaishnavas should see them as one of you and not discriminate against them. If you really belong to me," he's talking to his associates, "then listen to my order. Whatever you faithfully give these 2 to eat will be equal to offering with love to Krishna's mouth all the honey available in innumerable universes. Anyone who gives these 2 a small portion of food gives honey to the mouth of Krishna. If anyone ridicules these 2, he will be ruined as a result of that offense." And on hearing the Lord's words, the Vaishnavas cried in ecstatic love. Then they all offered obeisances to Jagai and Madhai. The Lord then said, "Listen, devotees, let us all go to the Ganga." Then, accompanied by his associates and wearing a garland of forest flowers, Lord Vishwambar entered the waters of the Ganga. And due to the ecstasy of kirtan, all the devotees constantly behaved like restless young boys. Although they were all greatly learned and mature, they behaved like young boys. This is the potency of devotional service to Vishnu. In the festival of taking bath in the Ganga after kirtan, everyone was so overwhelmed with ecstasy that they forgot who was the Lord and who were the servants. When the Lord splashed water on the Vaishnavas, no one could compete with him. They all retreated in defeat. Everyone who engaged in water fights with the Lord retreated after fighting for some time. And sometimes Advaita, Gauranga, and Nityānanda sported together. And sometimes Haridas, Srivas, and Mukunda sported. Then there's a whole list of names of all the other servants. And Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada says the number of Śrī Caitanya's servants are innumerable. Sri Krishna Dvaipayana Veda Vyas will record the names of Lord Chaitanya's servants in traditional literatures like the Puranas. So we'll finish there at verse number 340, but we'll see what happens. So what an ecstatic narration of Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur. Yes, so how fortunate that we are that we've come into this line and we're chanting the names of the Panchatattva and we're chanting the names of Radha and Krishna and chanting the names of all the Vaishnavas. So fortunate we are. So very soon we will be bathing in the Ganga in Navadvip in our future birth and associating directly with all of these personalities. Gaur Premanandi. Jai Shri Nityānanda Ram ki jai. Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki jai. Jagai Madhai Deliverance Leela ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol.
Jaya Nitai Gauranga, 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 Nitai Gauranga, Jaya Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Jaya Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Jaya Nitai Gauranga.
Śrī Caitanya-bhagavata ki jai, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur ki jai, Śrī Sachinandana Gaura Hari ki jai, Nityānanda Mahajana ki jai, Śrī Panchatattva ki jai, the deliverance of Jagai Madhai ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Vrindai Tulsidebai Priyai Keshavasya Cha, Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo